Hello and welcome, everyone. I am the Restless Kaiser.
I'm Wooly Mike.
And I'm Nick from Grey Primer.
But together we are Modeling for Advantage.
Isn't that a beautiful sound? Let's
Seamless.
Seamless indeed. It sounds awful to them, I'm sure. Nick from Team Clueless Games is here. Axe is going to always catch us in the rerun. He has some social commitment at this time. Rich John is here. Lazy Pirate Painting, Evening All More, Warlord Games, American War of Independence, Americans on the painting table for me tonight. Nice. And Paul Parker is here. Anybody else? Oh, Mirror Manga. Hello, Little Apron. I'm hoping that's my nickname. A man-sized apron, I think you'll find, Mirror. And Michael Wayne says, "G'day, folks." So, hobbying tonight. Anybody doing any? I am going to put some bronze green on some of these Clash of Steel. What are they called? Chieftains, I think.
I was going to say tanks and be way too
Tanks, yes, that
generic for this channel.
Is that Centurion? Centurion ones.
Centurion. That's the one. It's the one before Chieftain, isn't it?
Yeah. Centurion with the Polston cannon.
That's the very same. Wooly, what are you up to?
Desert Americans. We were talking about this at the weekend. Kaiser's getting his Africa Corps up to scratch, so just dry brushing Stuart, Lee, and Sherman group with lots and lots of half tracks and infantry support. That's my 100 points.
And what about you, Nick? You doing any hobbying, or are you 100% chat?
I am 100% chat, but I was doing some Wargame exclusive orcs before I came into the chat, and I had primed them, and I thought I can bring those into the cabin. And no, I was high as a kite within about a minute, so I had to put them outside to air. Yeah. Absolutely. But Wargame exclusive orcs are very nice. If nobody has seen them before, good company.
Are they fantasy or sci-fi?
Those ones are sci-fi. They're actually all little guitarists. They're all rockers, ROKKERs.
Right.
They've all got guitar-themed weapons, and very cool. What's that?
Have they got mohawks?
I think one of them does, yeah, and sort of steampunk goggles and things like that, and leathers. But they do a whole range of sci-fi and fantasy on Wargame exclusive. So yeah.
Sounds a bit like Chaos Noise Marines.
They are very like Chaos Noise Marines, yeah. I think they do a range of those as well.
Nick, you were on the show last time, but we didn't do longer introductions. So tell the people at home what it is that you do and where they can find you on the internet, etc.
So you can find me at youtube.com Grey Primer, at Grey Primer, wherever that is. And you can see all of my videos there for builds that I've done within dioramas, and all the way back to when I was just doing unboxings and kit reviews. And you can also find me on Nick from Grey Primer on Instagram. Those are the two main places that I hang out. And I don't post many videos because the things I build usually take a huge amount of time, but I'm trying to get better at doing videos and things in between. That's me.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to turn my phone off because it's beeping at me furiously, and I'm failing to do this. Apologies. I should have done this before. Right. Yeah. So then, Nick, we've had a few extra people who've joined us. Michael Wayne is doing the Flames of War Panzer Lair this evening. You know, Michael, there's a fantastic review on the YouTube of that this channel called Modeling for Advantage, apparently. Check it out, I think, sometime.
Nice kit. It's a kit as well.
Goth Hearthguard for Saga. Saga is on my to-do list.
Mine too.
I definitely want to try Saga. I think one of the problems with Saga is it seems to involve a lot of proprietary widgets, which are not all available. And I've looked at it a few times, like, oh, I need those bits, and I don't seem to be able to buy them, and so forth. So, yeah, but it does look interesting. All right, then, Nick, you got some beautiful pictures to show us. So you do a lot of kit bashing, and you said before you called the show Grey Primer because you used to do pretty much just model making, but you do actually do get around to painting some of this stuff sometimes, right?
Yeah, I do indeed. Let me see if I can get you up.
I probably have to bring up the slides. So there they are.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. Well, the last time I was on this show, I found out about like 2 minutes before it started. Hey, have you got any slides? And I was like, and I enjoy a good slide deck. So this time I was able to prepare. But anyway, so yeah, this madness you see in front of you here, this is what I used to do a lot of. I was really into building kits. It was kind of a zen thing for me. I was in a pretty stressful job, and afterwards I'd go and build kits and be all chill. And I just found like it was the most relaxing thing to do. And I didn't care who made it. Like here you've got some Warhammer for sure, but there's also Shield Wolf, a great company out of Greece. We've got some Bandai stuff there. There's Cool Mini or Not. And then I take fancy artsy photos of them and share those. And that was where it started. And there are a few there that are sort of suspiciously kit bashed, and I was getting into that a little bit. And then people were saying,
dark corner.
yeah, people were like, why don't you record some of this? You're already doing the things that people would want to see on YouTube. So why not stick a camera on it? You know, put it up there. And I was a photographer for many years, knew nothing about video. So massive learning curve there going to video. But yeah, I started to film this stuff, and people could live vicariously through me. They could learn about kits that they were thinking about buying, or they'd get ideas for like kit bashing and things like that. So that's where that went. But the kit bashing was really what hooked me even deeper. And I had this idea about what if, do you know what an STC is? The standard template construct.
Construction template.
That, yeah. So in Warhammer 40,000, there are these kind of magic boxes that contain all of the information for building a thing. It could be a new type of combine harvester, or it could be a manufacturing plant for murder robots. And they're the most prized things to discover in the galaxy. But I was like, what if orcs found STCs for like 20th century military vehicles? What would they turn them into? So I went out and I got a bunch of 135 scale military vehicles. I figured 135 would be a better scale for orcs. 148 just seems a little bit too small for their chunky bodies.
And Warhammer vehicles are really oversized. When you've got 28 mil kits from war games,
yeah,
you realize that Warhammer vehicles are enormous.
Yeah, completely. But the challenge of these really, I mean, it was bliss. It was no hassle at all. I just got stuck into, I made stories around each of these vehicles, and I turned them into this lunacy. So we've got kill burstas, kill blastas. There's a battle fortress at the end there. The second one is a coach for a Blood Bowl team of snotlings. And I should paint these at some point. But yeah, these were massive amount of fun, and I learned a huge amount across a few months making these.
And these, I mean, you just said like a coach for a snotling is what that second one, the Hanomag. Yeah. And so that's a purely cosmetic piece. That is not replacing an in-game model. That's
just fun. And I think that's where I discovered early on that I wasn't really interested, honestly, in playing the game competitively. I live a little bit out in the countryside, and I thought I'm not really in a hurry to go in and play games. I love the mini, I love the models, and most of all, I love the lore, the stories behind them all. So that's what I was digging. So I didn't mind sacrificing a kit to be completely non-usable in a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can tell how some of my later dioramas, people will be like, that's a really expensive model that you've cut in half, or glued into that diorama. You can never play with that. Yeah.
So when you mentioned these are kit bashed, and this is one of the more interesting things. We mentioned it just before the show, didn't we? That compared to Warhammer models, those 1/35th Tamiya models, I think that Hanomag still sells for about 16 quid. It's not, and it's 10 inches long. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not an expensive model at all.
No, the only expensive one there is the gun truck at the end from Italeri.
Yeah. That looks like an expensive kit.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to see the size of that kit in the real world?
So that one, you've taken this 8-wheel sort of logistics vehicle and turned it into a land ship.
It's a land ship. Yeah, the wheels are still in place underneath. The cabin is still there. I do think that there's a ship wheel somewhere on it, but it is non-functional. It is more to put some snotling in front of it and say, "You're the captain." Yeah, and it's not attached to anything; it's just spinning in air. Yeah, so I can show you
how big it is. Yeah, please do. Please do. That would be great.
So that is it in all of its glory.
My days!
Yeah, and you can see underneath the structuring around the wheels how it made it.
Right. To hold that whole boat canopy. And is that just made out of plastic card then, or?
Plastic card and card, just regular card. And I definitely should paint this. It's kind of wrong that this is sitting grey.
The photograph does not do it. It doesn't give you the scale of how huge that thing is.
That is a chainsword off of an Imperial Knight, just for sort of reference there at the front. Yeah.
That's £100 kit with Savage just for a part.
yeah, for something else, for a part. Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't like to put like euro or dollar values on these kits.
And being in Ireland, everything your end is even more expensive, isn't it, with the import fees now?
It is, yeah. Kind of, it hurt us a lot when we went over to Brexit, when we were starting to get those tax or letters from like the post office before we got stuff. Because I liked ordering from like some Mighty Lancer Games in Bridlington. That was one of my favorite shops to order from. And then I was getting these bills before the thing would arrive. And at the time, at the time I was like, what can be done? And I just thought, well, I'll make a database of all of the hobby shops in Ireland and catalog every single product that they sell, like all the brands they sell, and then make that publicly available. So I still maintain that to this day.
That is a fantastic public service, mate. Well done, mate.
Yeah. I mean, it was my personal need at the start. It was like, where do I find Humbrol? I was like, how would I find where I find Humbrol? And I was like, if only there was a database. So yeah.
Right. And of course, you got Dwayne down on there for BattleTech, right?
I do indeed. Yeah, Plastic Crack Gaming is there with bells on.
Friend of the show and lovely man.
Yeah,
he's a bit too tall for my. Now I've met him in the flesh. He might be a bit too tall for my liking.
It's freakish, isn't it?
I didn't find that a problem.
Right.
Yeah, me neither. He's just normal height to me. But Mike, I was surprised when I met the Kaiser. I gotta say, that was
what the money a wee man. I am. So, well, just watch the video. See me sat next to Mike. He's like a foot taller than me.
And I'm only sat on a foot. Mike sat in a normal chair, and I'm sat on a stool that's about 18 inches high, just so that we can get the same, both be in the shots together.
Right. Yeah. My mother's 4'11". I never had a chance in life, mate. Never got it. No, it's not.
Any questions from the chat or anything before I move on here, or?
No, we seem to be good. We seem to be good so far. So you haven't talked about inspiration. I mean, were these just, you said you wanted to try kit bashing, but I mean, did you have an idea before, or did you just go to a shop, look at some kits and thought, I could do something with that? Or
like, I think it started with the M577 there, which is based on the, it's a M113, I think.
Yeah.
Option, like late 60s, but I like the idea of the wooden boards on the side being like a display. I like sort of like trophy cabinet, You know, that an
Right.
orc captain could go and nail on his trophies, his sort of spoils of war onto the side of that. And that got me thinking, like, what other vehicles are out there that I could have some fun with? The Hanomag was really cheap. I think the Leopard, like you were saying before, I think they were all bargain basement kits, all like 1970s, 1980s kits.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
the reason they're so cheap is that it's the same plastic screw they made 50 years ago. So they've, you know, it's 4 pence a kit to squeeze the plastic in the mold. They made their money back long ago. So if you're looking at 135th for kit bashing, do shop around, look carefully, because you'll find many of them. Some of them are going to be £100, and some of them are going to be £10. And it's really about the age of the kit. There's a bit of work to do, clean up on them older kits. They are old molds. Sometimes you get them. I mean, I've been working on some Africa Core figures that comes with the Panzer II, in that, like that Hanomag comes with a few guys. Those, and they had some horrifically strong mold lines on them. They took a lot of filing to get rid of.
It's funny.
But
I think the Tamiya's were fine here, honestly. You know, from what I remember, it was the Italeri that gave me the problems.
Was it?
Oh, that was
and that artillery kit will be quite new, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
relative to the Tamiya one.
I build a lot of kits, so I rattle through those Tamiyas. But when I hit the Italeri, I was like, that was 3 days of just work. Because it's deeply complex underneath, unnecessarily. You don't see any of that stuff, but it is.
But was it quite a bit more expensive?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because with model kits, it's not to do with the size of the vehicle you're going to get in the end of it, the price. It's the complexity of the kit that ratchets the price up.
I suppose that'd be like Gundams. You get your basic Gundams, and then you get ones with like working ankle joints and all sorts of articulation on the sprue, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. But yeah,
I knew we were going to get stuck on this screen, by the way. I knew we were going to get stuck on this screen, because after this is Warhammer.
What have we got here from Michael Wayne? 1990s 135th kits. Not sure how expensive they are, but I used to collect them in the late 90s. Yeah, I mean, probably it's all the same kits that you remember, Michael, would be my bet.
Yeah. Okay, this will break us out of this.
Orcs versus Sharks.
Right.
Okay, that seemed like a...
push the narrative idea even more, and I wondered how all those other kits were like, what if orcs had a vehicle for going to Blood Bowl matches, or, you know, collecting trophies or whatever, being pirates on land. And I was like, what if orcs went fishing? And of course they go on the Orca, right? And that ties into my all-time favorite film, Jaws. Absolutely love that. Trying to make an Orca is very difficult, because nobody, at the time I was doing this, nobody made one. So there's no decent Orca kit. I think there have been a few like novelty ones. I think someone's talking about a Lego one, something like that, quite recently.
Right, but that's not a model kit, right?
See the way I gently introduced you to Warhammer by having a Tamiya kit in here as well. So I found the hull of the Pibber, the PBR, was a good match for a 135-ish Orca. And then I just built the cabin, the deck, and all the bits and pieces to try and make this as close as possible to an Orca. And then put a bunch of orcs on it. And it's being attacked by a megalodon, because you got to scale up the shark as well. And yeah, this was done over a period of about 3 months, this kit. And this was a 2020 build.
Right. Tell us about the shark.
Shark's a toy megalodon from Amazon. It's a big rubbery junk thing. It's terrible. But I primed it and then just repainted it, and tried to trim off as much of the sort of rubber flash on it as possible. But
well, don't forget, from the original films, the The actual shark model was a load of rubber that it kept absorbing water, and so it kept malfunctioning when they were trying to do the boat scenes.
It got the shakes, didn't it? Just like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Got the shakes.
It did. It used to just like shake and then it would flip over and it would be like, the shark's dead. We can go back to shore. Yeah, it would vibrate violently and then capsize. So they used to have to lift it out of the water, try and dry it. And then that's sort of the beauty shot of what it looks like cutting through the waves. So another sizable build.
So how big is that patrol boat then? Is that like a foot long? A bit more. I'm just looking at the size of the orc figure.
Yeah, just over a foot long. Yeah. And
as
again,
Michael accurately pointed out, you realize you're going to need a bigger boat, right?
Yeah. And in this case, I needed a bigger fish because a scaled 135 great white looked so tiny. It was sitting beside this boat.
Hence needing to find a rubber megalodon.
You can just see it, the edge of it there. That's a German 88 on the nose.
Oh, right. Another Tamiya kit.
Another Tamiya kit. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna it comes with like a little motorcycle. I was gonna have that somewhere, but it kind of didn't fit the narrative here. So but yeah, that's a hefty kit as well. Okay. Grot Death Machine.
Does he bring death to the grots or to the enemies of the grots?
The enemies of the grots.
Okay.
And we're still not using Warhammer kits here. I managed to avoid them this far into the show. This is a Meng World War Toons.
It's a toon tank.
Yeah, they make these adorable things. This is the Sherman Firefly, the UK Sherman. And this was really inspired by two of my favorite movies, Kelly's Heroes, and the bottom image there is from Platoon. And I always loved the idea of these tanks rolling through the undergrowth with just lots of soldiers sitting on top of them along for the ride. And I think both those movies, especially in that closing scene in Platoon, there's a lot of character there. You can tell they're not exactly codex compliant, I guess the 40K terminology would be. And snotlings are the most adorable things, and I think they're Gretchens, Grots, snotlings all mixed in here. But if you've ever built those tanks are just so much fun, and they do aircraft, they do ships.
Yeah, I've always found kind of caricature art impressive, how it looks nothing like what it's supposed to look like, but manages to sustain the essence of it. They're recognizable. I'm like on holiday once in Prague with a couple of friends. Somebody drew a caricature of us in Sharpie in like 10 minutes, 20 quid or whatever, and I'm just astonished how they looked like us but didn't look like us. I don't know. I'm not enough of a have any real training in that sort of thing, so I don't know how they do it, but I find it really impressive.
Yeah, and for something like a tank to remain, like, because they have a whole range, so you can see like Panzers and all sorts, and you're like, how do they do
that?
It
looks like a Sherman. It doesn't just look like a tank. It looks like a Sherman.
Yeah, and it looks different enough to a regular Sherman that's not a Firefly to know that this is a Firefly. And then this is what it ends up looking like in the diorama.
Yeah, that's very orky. That's very much like a grot tank or something.
But I didn't want it to look like this was just a novelty act. I wanted it to look like this was a proper combat team of grots, that this tank had seen a lot of action, and it was where they lived. They lived in and around this thing.
Yeah,
and you can see sort of it's only tiny. You can see it.
So now you have to redo it and make a Fury one, obviously, with the logs and everything.
That would be so cool, having it right beside this one. Yeah.
Everybody's built a Fury tank. You need to make a Hawk Fury tank.
Yeah, just covered in grots. Yeah. So yeah, I enjoy the terrain damage like that. I like the fact of sort of the tracks going across mud. And anytime that I'm out and about and I see where sort of vehicles have crossed grass, I always go out and photograph this because I use all that for reference images later on.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the little grot tank. And you can see the runt herder at the front there. He's got a little squig because in Platoon, there's actually a Marine with an Alsatian walking in front of the Sherman as it goes through the jungle. So yeah, I wanted to capture a little bit of that moment.
Okay. And again, is that obviously there's some orc pieces there, but from other kits. But again, is it plastic cardboard?
I don't think there's much plastic card there. There's bits and pieces of Tamiya there. The barbed wire going up the barrel that's made by Green Stuff World. And then there's like an orc head on the front. If Dwayne is in the chat, he could probably tell us which clan that belongs to with the red armor. But yeah, there's Tamiya tank dressing there I can see. So yeah, little mixture.
Mira says there's plenty of room for Warhammer kits on her channel. And the false emperor will receive you.
I didn't realize this is heretical channel. I will have to leave now, I'm afraid. I'm surrounded by Blood Angels iconography here. It's not good for me to be here. But here, we have arrived at Warhammer. 7 Stompy Sarcophagi. And another of my favorite movies. Magnificent 7. From 1960, I think. Going to hazard.
Yeah, I don't know. 1960 scams. I mean, it sounds about right.
Remake, of course, of Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. I was thinking about a Seven Samurai one, but I always enjoyed, I know it's probably blasphemy, but I always enjoyed Magnificent 7 more because guns, it's in color, they're cowboys. And yeah,
there's a lot for a teenage boy to like about that, isn't there?
Right?
And Samurai,
you probably want to do Eldar.
What was that, Mike?
If you're going to do 7 Samurai, I'd probably go Eldar.
Oh, that'd be cool. I could even do a black and white diorama as well, like properly grayscaled. That could be. Yeah, there you go. Oh, there's another 3 months of my life gone. So thanks, Mike.
No problem.
So
as long as you credit me on the
credit, I'll credit you. Of course I will. So yeah, I thought, wouldn't it be neat have 7 different dreadnoughts acting as the Magnificent 7, and the idea being that there'd be some, not a Thunderhawk, it probably wouldn't be big enough, but a Stormbird out there in the galaxy that has 7 dreadnoughts on it, and they just travel from planet to planet, answering the calls of these, loyal servants to the Emperor who haven't been answered by chapters they have allegiances to. But the dreadnoughts just were like, we'll go check out that planet, go defend those squishy humans. And the Stormbird.
Are you familiar with a film called Battle Beyond the Planets?
I know the name, but I don't know if I've seen the film.
The main character was the guy who played John Boy in the Waltons, but Robert
Not
Vaughn.
selling it, Mike.
Robert Vaughn plays one of the space pilots or gunslingers that he recruits as part of his force of 7 people. And it is the Space Magnificent 7. And it actually features Robert Vaughn in the similar role as he does in the 7.
When I was
researching, no one's ever heard of it.
No, I had heard of it, and the reason now is because I went on to Wikipedia to research 7 Samurai and the films that inspired. Because I wanted to be able to talk about those when I was making the video and say why I picked Magnificent 7 and how it's the best of those.
That'll be on the stars, yeah.
It was mentioned, but not in glowing terms. It was
there isn't. The same company made a completely different film with all of the same miniature models. I can't remember what the Yeah, the film was cool, but it features all of the same space scenes and spaceships with different characters. But
Oh,
Battle
it's
Beyond the
really
Stars,
this sounds so terrible. I'm gonna have to find it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's.
bad film of the week. Battle Beyond the Stars.
I saw Mira's message come up there about loving Dreadnought. So yes,
Yeah, I was
there are-
listening to your start. You say you like the Warhammer lore and the Warhammer universe, and then you've got this lovely story of this tribe of heroes wandering around the galaxy solving problems. That's not Warhammer.
Well,
That's
listen.
not
When
how it. Mirror
okay,
loves
when
that stuff, but
when
that's
a
not
s-
how it is.
when a Stormbird arrives on your planet, this is the biggest vehicle I can think of which could do like a planet landing, and these 7 like monstrous creations thunk out onto the planet. It's not going to do anybody any good, even if they protect you. There's
Protect.
still going to be thousands dead under their stompy feet.
Well, there's a taint of chaos. Clearly, if we need to come and sort the mess out, it's gone. It's past it. Burn 'em.
So this is what I did anyway. These are some of the sort of detail shots of.
Is that Yul Brenner in the black?
Let me see. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went with 7 different chapters for the 7 different dreadnoughts, and all 7 chapters are from original legions, loyal legions. So I wanted it to have that lineage to it, that these are 7 very famous chapters. 7, I kind of felt bad leaving out 2 of the loyalist legions, but you know, Magnificent 9 is vague, yeah, at best.
There's only 8
Tenuous.
loyalist legions. The Dark Angels are dodgy as hell.
They can't all be good, okay? There's always bad apples in there. Look at the Blood Angels. So this is what I made.
Oh, you have got a dark. So you have got a chaos one in there. You got a Dark Angel. Good.
That makes me so angry, and yeah, just yeah. Actually, yeah, they've always like, who is good in the world of Warhammer? Are there any good guys on screen right now? No.
But then again, if you remember your Magnificent Seven, there was the guy that wasn't one of the famous actors. It's the second one from the left in that with the red shirt and the black coat. He spent all his time trying to ask them where they'd hidden their gold and where the church silver was. He was the one that was always after the village money.
That's James Coburn, Mike. He's quite famous.
He's pretty famous.
It might be
James Coburn's on the far side on the right because he was the knife man. You've got
that not Charles Bronson. See, look at us getting stuck.
Thompson's in the green shirt.
Do you mean that they got the names wrong on the movie poster?
Yes,
Like
they have.
underneath.
Oh, because that's Steve McQueen, third from right, and his name is.
Yeah, they're not in order because.
Do you know how long I stared at this? Because I had to use this as a color reference for my background. I had to hand paint the background, and I didn't even notice that the names were out. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
James Coburn's in the blue shirt. But yeah, there was the one guy who was actually the bad egg, and he was there for profit rather than so that you've got to have a bad egg in there.
Yeah. I think Robert Vaughn was pretty sketchy as well, wasn't he? He was like the sort of struggling with PTSD and didn't want to fire his gun. Great movie. Yeah. But yeah, I changed they fought like 700 to they fought like 7,000 because dreadnoughts. And yeah, all of the names attached to these have a lore link, so that I didn't just pull these out of the air. These are all famous dreadnoughts from these chapters. So anyway, there you go.
Very nice. I love the Imperial Fist one at the back there. Yeah.
Yeah, all of this is totally off codex. Like, I kind of like the idea of them being away from their chapters for so long that they've gone a little bit astray. Like the Dark Angel is walking around with a skeleton on a chain and an Eldar sword. So Yeah.
Michael Wayne's just mentioned the Dollar trilogy, so there's one for you: The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or The Man with No Name.
That'd be sweet.
Plenty of ideas.
What do we got? 1.5 Marines on a bug hunt is the next one. How are we for time? Are we okay? It's okay.
Well, yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good. Still got 20 minutes or so. No rush.
I was going to share this with Mira when we meet in a couple of weeks, but she has not read The Devastation of Baal by Guy Haley, so I didn't want to spoil it for her. So she's watching now, so she's going to have it spoiled for her. Devastation of Baal is a phenomenal novel if you want to learn about sort of the scale of conflict within Warhammer 40,000, where you have, I think, thousands of Blood Angels and successor chapters of the Blood Angels defending their planet and its moons against trillions of space bugs. The High Fleet Leviathan Tyrannid horde, who are coming to wipe Baal and its planets from the galaxy.
And it's pretty well known among the gamers because this was a launch box for one of the editions, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Well, I mean, there was also quite recently a Leviathan, which is the resurgence of High Fleet Leviathan after the Blood Angels gave it such a smack back into the warp. Arguably, the forces of another force. I'm not going to give away any spoilers there, but a secondary force came and assisted. Because only one group within the galaxy is allowed to destroy the Blood Angels, and they were not going to let some space bugs come in and take away that fun. But a great novel, and really relentless in its action, and also quite political. There's weird sort of political machinations happen early on as the chapters meet up and try to come to a consensus on how to defend the planet. And there's a bunch of people who don't even show up. There's a bunch of chapters who've gone so dark into the space vampire stuff that they just don't bother turning up or don't get invited, which is even worse.
Right.
But for this, I wanted to use 8-inch McFarlane.
There's quite a bit of lore about the successor chapters in there then for people who are interested in that.
For people who are into things like the Flesh Terrors, the Blood Drinkers was always my favorite chapter growing up because they kind of wore their vampirism on their sleeve. They had thralls accompany them into battle so they could get a top up. They had a cup. You can just see it behind me. A cup with a blood drop going into it as their logo. So they're pretty much saying like, yeah, we be vampires. You know, what are you gonna do about it? So they show up. They give a good account of themselves, and I'm happy. But one of the chapters which shows up, which is not invited, is one called the Knights of Blood, who had been excommunicated from the Imperium or the sort of loyalist chapters because it was wrongly suggested by the Inquisition that they had done naughty things, but they were 100% loyal. And even though they had been cut out of Daddy's inheritance, they continued to do the Emperor's work around the galaxy. They just would turn up, do some good, move on. And
by do good, you mean like kill people, right?
In the name of the Emperor, so it's really doing them a mercy to
indeed.
Free them from their erroneous ways.
Yeah.
So here you have a blood drinker about to just put one of these filthy space bugs to rest on the surface of this moon. And you can see a discarded bolt rifle there with a magazine out of it. All of that, the magazine, everything's all sculpted because I had to make that because you don't really get that stuff within McFarlane. And you can see it, the wider shot there. The guy on the left, who's half of his former self, that's a Knight of Blood. They sacrificed themselves on this planet to allow another chapter to escape. So they gave their lives so that one of the other successor chapters could get away. And they also had a 40k a Blood Angels relic. So in the end, they redeemed themselves post-mortem.
Right. So in this, then, obviously the model of the Gene Stealer and the Space Marines, they're McFarlane toys.
McFarlane toys, yeah, they're both gray. The Marines, the Gene Stealer is sort of looks like that in the box.
Mm-hmm. So what the work on that was mostly the setting, or did you what kind of modifications did you have to make there?
So you can see close up, there's a lot of physical damage to the Space Marine. So he would have been completely dismantled because they just pop apart. Dismantled and then dremeled. Some modifications were made. The little chain around his wrist, you can sort of see it there. Yeah, it's not very clear. It's got like an Aquila on it, so those were hand sculpted. The ejected magazine was sculpted, but a lot of that is like dremeling and physical damage. I didn't want to get too graphic on the show, but the Marine who's cut in half, his intestines and stuff are all out, and then there's all drag marks away from him, and all of that was sculpted out of clay. So yeah, a lot of work went into those.
So is it quite heavy then, that one, if you made it with clay?
That one's quite heavy. Yeah, even those are, if you ever get a chance to have a play with those McFarlane action figures, they've got a lovely solidness to them. They feel like action figures of childhood that you could just throw into the garden and they'd be fine. There's absolutely nothing fragile about them.
Off the roof. There's a parachute.
Yeah. Like you could even throw it onto the roof, leave it there all autumn and winter, get it next spring, and it'll be fine. Just be a bit mossy. But yeah, I like that you feel like you can really sort of, mess around with them. Other action figures that are licensed to Warhammer, like Joy Toy and Bandai, are more expensive and a lot more fragile, even though they've got more articulation. You just wouldn't want to throw them, give them to your kid to play with. Yeah.
Right. They're collector's items, not toys.
Pretty much, yeah. Even though they're heavily articulated, they're more for pose and then put on the shelf rather than run around in the garden with. Are we still okay for time?
We're still great. Still great.
Yeah. So everything is cannon fodder. This is
cannon fodder Shakespearean. The line, I think it's Henry V. It's food for powder is the first reference to that, I think. Cannon
nice.
Food
haven't read it. Or Henry V is a phenomenal play.
I think it was Henry V.
So this is of a similar literary level here. This is the Siege of Terra series of novels, which wraps up the incredibly long Horus Heresy series of books about the blasphemous betrayal of formerly loyal son of the Emperor and splitting his loyal sons in half, and they come attacking Earth, and the remainder stay and defend Earth, more or less. Siege of Terra is the end of a very long journey of these traitorous forces getting across the galaxy, finally getting to Earth, and it's the last defense of the Imperial Palace while the Emperor is still inside. It's a very hard thing it's an intimidating series of books to approach because there's just so many of them. With all of the sort of, I think, yeah, with sort of the anthology ones and then the side quests that there are, it's a lot. You could probably get the gist of it within about 15 or 20. Get sort of the core texts of the Horus Heresy before you approach this, which is the final run, and it's held separately under the Siege of Terra banner. This is so much more approachable for a casual reader to, like, if you'd read maybe the first sort of 4 books of the Horus Heresy and then a couple along the way, you could go into this and feel very, very comfortable knowing exactly what's happening, that the forces of the traitors have arrived in our solar system and final preparations are being made on Earth. And then there are all of these converging storylines coming in from the previous novels that will culminate in sort of the final showdown. I'm not going to give anything away here, but it's a lot of fighting, a lot of super soldiers getting smooshed by other super soldiers, and you get a lot of sort of demonic elements coming in later on. But I wanted to kind of get a feel for what does a tiny little corner of that battlefield on Earth look like. And this Age of Darkness box, which was the launch box for Horus Heresy, is jammed full of stuff. So I dipped into that to try and tell the story. So a little bit of gore here. So I should have had a trigger warning slide up before that, but it's only plastic toys. There's nothing really happening here. And yeah, you got this monumental Land Raider Spartan just smashing through this huge puddle of blood that it's splashing through. And everywhere you kind of look on this tiny corner of battlefield is just the remnants of, what are these, like 7-8 foot super soldiers? And in this context, they look incredibly fragile. But little sort of terrible stories all around this one. This kind of the money shot of what it looks like wide. One Praetor there with the sword on top of the hill of bodies, and then a tank that just doesn't care, just kind of splashing through the whole lot as the war continues.
How did you get on with the posing these? Because I remember reviewing that kit, and they're not that flexible. I was not very impressed with those Marines. They were very, very simple kits.
I thought they were okay, but because I could do physical damage to them, anything that was getting in the way I could cut off, or bore a hole through to represent like a bolter round going into it. So I got around it that way. You can see one submerged in the blood as well. So there's not, just so you know, he's just been dremeled off. There's no body under there. It's just flat. And a lot of them will just have been dremeled flat underneath or had bits removed just to make them look realistic.
From the viewing angle, you can't tell that.
No, even up close, you wouldn't be able to tell. Yeah, I don't mind them being slightly limited, because in the Horus Heresy you're just fielding so many. It's why the box set is just so huge. You go through.
I remember quite vividly when we reviewed that, though. I started like quite excited about how good value it was, and I was more and more disappointed as we got deeper through the review about like how, compared to like the tactical Marine kits and the stuff that we're familiar with, it's like, this is quite a disappointing kit, to be honest.
I personally liked it because I got a lot to work with there. So even after this diorama, I've still got like half a box of stuff there. And the Dreadnought, I think it was a Contemptor you got in this, I used in the Magnificent Seven. So
nothing went to waste.
Nothing went to waste. Nothing ever does.
You didn't. So you haven't. I mean, as we're going through these, so we're going to get that iconic Crimson Fist scene somewhere in here.
Oh, I'd love to do that from the
Rogue Trader cover art. But the picture's been used over and over, hasn't it?
This one here, yeah,
that one right there. Yeah,
I think somebody's done one. So
I'm
probably
sure a lot of people have attempted it.
Probably because of that, I wouldn't. But it is it's an incredible image. Actually, the other classic books which I have behind me, like the Realm of Chaos books, probably they would be more my scene of doing like a big chaos scene that would seem unrealistic to attempt. I'd probably attempt.
You're gonna need to get yourself a big, great old one, because the plastic kit's not gonna look doesn't look like that.
Midwinter Minis at the minute are doing a scaled Great Unclean one. To be Titan sized in 32 mil scale. So I think they're on like their third or fourth video in that build series, and it's well worth checking out if you want to see.
They're hand building it, are they?
hand building it. Yeah, a lot of foam.
A lot of foam, yeah.
A lot of
Nice.
foam.
Nice.
So are we still okay? We're still okay. Anything in the
Well,
chat, or am I just good to wrap? I can't even see the YouTube
I think people
chat,
are
by
just
the way.
listening and watching. There's not been that many comments.
Oh, cool. I'll say something controversial. No. Another Siege of Terra one here, because the thing I think I struggle with most when I'm reading the novels is Titans. I just can't get the terms with, like, if you tell me something is a 30-foot tree, I'm like, okay, I can divide, I'm like more or less 6 foot. I can multiply myself and be like, okay, so that's what the tree height is. When you get into Titans, it's like, I can't cope with that size. I just can't imagine. I know that Imperial Knight, within its little head, there's a cockpit in there with like a pilot.
A driver.
There's a driver inside that head. So I thought, well, if I put a knight beside a thing, or if I put a Valkyrie, because I can even see the pilots inside the Valkyrie. If I put those beside a Titan, I can start to get a sense of scale here. So I have knights crawling over the Titan. I also have a section of the palace wall on Earth, and I have a Valkyrie being chewed up by the big chainsword that's in the Titan's right hand there. So this is an Iconoclast Titan. This is one of the larger ones. This is between a warlord and an Imperator Titan.
Right. So
if
this
that
is
means anything to anyone. Right. Yeah. In terms of the actual kit, this is one of the finest building experiences I've ever had within Warhammer. It's not Bandai Gundam or anything like that, but it's approaching that level of complexity and articulation. It's nowhere near Bandai. Let's get that right. I mean, Bandai is on another world, but it gave me those kind of feels as I was putting it together. Beautiful articulation.
The Titanicus kits are surprisingly complicated. Even like the little rhinos and things, they're a lot more involved than if you had old Titanicus where you had a one-piece single mold rhino. This is not what you're going to get if you buy the new ones.
And right now I'm building an extension to this diorama. I'm building like part 2 to this, which is going to include a lot of tanks, and they're painted, they're done. I just have to paint the Titan that's featured in that. And I have loved every moment of painting those tiny little tanks. They are tremendous fun. But this is what it looks like as a wide shot there. And yeah, it's a very, very tall wall when you think that right down at the very bottom there are twin linked las cannons the whole way along the bottom of the wall. So if you think of how small Marines are beside that, the scale here is ferocious. And this was inspired by a movie poster. I don't know if you could guess which one, from 1933.
King Kong.
Good job. So you got an Imperial Knight as Fey Ray in his hand. You've got a Valkyrie as a biplane in the other hand. And the pose is, when you rotate him, it's pretty close as well to that poster. So,
when you said about scale, you were talking about painting tiny guys, are you going to put like a few infantry figures on the base?
So when I made this, there was no Legions Imperialis, so they hadn't made the epic scale Space Marines. But because I'm now doing the next section of wall, it'll just slide up against this. I'm actually going to add a couple of Space Marines just down to the bottom corner of that as they walk into the next scene. And that's going to give an immediate feel for just how tiny they are.
Yeah.
So do we have time for one more?
Go on, we'll take one more.
Okay, tanks versus farmers. So yes, I wanted to do a first
Flash
contact
Hobbits.
diorama, and I wanted to, because there are very few sort of scenes where you see like Warhammer, like Space Marines meeting regular civilians. Civilian models are just not something that's available within the Warhammer brand. They do a few like character models, within Lord of the Rings and stuff, which look civilian but are too recognizable as characters from Lord of the Rings. And I didn't want to do, 40K versus hobbits. So the little guys down below are from a company called Midlam Miniatures, MIDLAM, miniatures.co.uk. They do white metal stuff. Glorious, really, really beautiful minis. And to really make their day terrible, I had these two humongous tanks pushing up their farmland. And in the second shot, in purple, right in the center, you can see the little lady just getting a bit upset that her river's been churned up by this repulsor system, and the Land Raiders just smashing through. I doubt actually
that's
thinking
the
about
ground effect pushing the water.
I wanted to do something which really showed what that would look like. So you can see that the riverbed there showing through as the water's being shoved away from it. And in this other shot, you can just see the bow wave of that as it approaches the little kid, valiantly waiting to meet it on the end of the dock there.
To meet the Emperor's angels.
Oof, yeah. It's the thing is, though, there's no violence in this scene. It's implied. And you just know that the Dark Angels are not even going to notice that there's a building or people there. They're just going to not even lift off the throttle. Yeah. And that's it. Look, I made it to the end. All those dioramas.
To the end. Well, Nick, it was lovely to see like your journey through dioramas. Is a really nice sort of diversion on a Tuesday evening on a weeknight to one man's journey in the hobby. Doing some amazing stuff, mate. It's been a real pleasure. Do you want to remind the beautiful people at home where they can find your videos and your pictures and so forth?
Sure thing. If you go on to youtube.com/@grayprimer, that's GRAY primer, you can see all of the videos there. I do release videos sort of once every 3 or 4 months as I've done major builds, but I try to put videos in between as well. And I have a massive back catalog of videos. You can see the build videos for all of the dioramas that are sort of featured this evening. And you can also get me on Nick from Gray Primer on Instagram. So I'm sure we can put something into the show notes below for
those videos are for people who want to sort of through the thought process and the choices that you make. You're going to talk through those sort of things because you're just giving us a bit of a whistle stop tour here. I was conscious you had a lot to show us, so I didn't interrupt too often asking too many detailed questions. Because I wanted to see it. It's nice. It's not something we do often, and so it's been really nice to do that.
Thank you for letting me showcase them. That was great.
No, it was nice, and all because of a chance few minutes at the UK Games Expo where we shook hands, and really glad that you come on and shared that. Some fantastic stuff. I'm going to talk to you when the show after the show about dinosaurs because I think you might be the guy that Wooly, where did you get to with your hobby in tonight, buddy?
I've given all my tanks a nice sandy dry brush for that desert ward. So, and the half tracks as well have been done.
Nice. Have you gone pro? You're using a makeup brush. Hey,
for detail, I use the flathead one, but because I'm doing for that desert dusty look, I've gone for the large army painter.
Yep, I got some green paint over a white undercoat, so I'm going to need at least 2 coats on this. But the bronze green going down on a lot of these very late war British and Clash of Steel, of course. You're making a start on those. So the people did seem to like it.
Oh,
all
cool.
Right.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you.
We will be back in a couple of weeks where there's I'm getting through the backlog of videos. Some of you might notice we've been a bit slow recently. I've been a little bit demotivated with the editing, especially with John not being so well. I don't get to see Wooly nearly as much. We're having weekends where we try and cram a load of videos in and then I don't have the energy to edit them. But there's a few in the backlog. We just had the Panzer Lair video came out today, I think, actually, by the time the thumbnail was done and stuff. We've done 7th Armored. It's in the members area. That's going to come out. We reviewed some jungle scenery that we met from an old friend of Wooly's that he didn't know he had, that we also met at the expo. He's coming on the show in a couple of weeks to talk about his products, his scenery sets for deserts and jungle, just something a little bit different again. We've also got reviews for some of the Dead Man's Hand new stuff, which you will see quite soon. And we did the American Rangers for bolt action, which is a new kit. In the battle report, which you might wait a bit longer for, I actually recorded an SPQR video with Johnny B, which I know some of you have been waiting a very long time. We did this quite a while ago before John got ill. It will come, promise. And Wooly and I had our first game of Achtung Panzer on camera, and we are hoping to run that as Tank Crews will develop. We are playing a campaign from game 1 because, as I've said often before, I think the game's got a campaign system. Just play it, because otherwise you'll be bored of the game before you start the campaign. Just play. If you get things wrong, who cares? Just go for it.
And in a few weeks, we're going up to Battlefront.
Are we seeing an MfA review 21st Panzer? Michael, we're probably not. I'm not saying definitely not, but I didn't buy it because I didn't need any of the kits in it because it's such a specific thing. It's very much like a resin and metal. It's for anyone that doesn't know, 21st Panzer is an armored division cobbled together in Normandy. The Nazis rebuild all of the captured French equipment, 6 German gun calibers and things on them. It's really interesting, but it's completely different. And they're not plastic kits. They're resin, metal. There's a lot of work in it. And you wouldn't want that box unless you wanted to do 21st Panzer.
And it's the same with the US box as well. There's nothing in the US box that's new or different.
There's a lot of Shermans, and we've both already got lots of Shermans, haven't we? So that's why I built the Desert Army. Probably not. But the Desert Rats one we have done. And yes, Rich, SPQR, indeed. We did enjoy it, and we talked about a path forwards with that. We will definitely come back to it again. Trying to find I think SPQR is a dead game, Michael. I think it's not out anymore.
Is Dead Man's Hand the one with the deck of cards and that determines your play order? And
yeah,
yes.
I don't play a lot of games, but I played that one against Jerry on tabletop, and that was a lot of fun.
There's also Fistful of Lead by Wiley Games, which also uses cards.
Yeah, this was Dead Man's Hand for sure. I remember seeing the book. Yeah, that's a lot of fun, that game.
Well, if you've not seen, they just had a big Kickstarter and they got loads of plastic scenery for Westernmoreland, which you can kit bash and so forth. Compared to MDF, it's so nice.
I've done a load of kit bashing of the buildings.
Oh yeah, because you can play. You can go inside buildings, so everything is usable. Yeah.
And I think it was foreground. They made some really nice MDF stuff, but you got no definition on all this wood paneling. Whereas these modular plastic buildings.
Oh, nice. Look at that.
And if you think about the fact that they're all interchangeable panels,
that's
cool. You can do a lot with it. You can really do a lot with it. So I'll review it out, be coming out shortly as well. And it's obviously popular because we have had to replace it on the website, on Modeling for Advantage web store twice already. We bought some. It's all out. We bought some. It's all out. Nice. All right. Anyway, folks, I hope that was useful for you. I certainly enjoyed looking at the stuff there. Check out Nick from Grey Primer with an A, GRAY. And otherwise, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Good night, folks.
Bye.